Hello everyone, welcome to this edition of MeteoMark's Weather. It's great to have you on the channel today. We're going to be watching, unfortunately, a very strong, powerful hurricane bear down on Jamaica early this coming week. Already we're going to have major flooding concerns throughout the weekend as this system agonizingly moves extremely slow. All our thoughts and prayers are with you in Jamaica. I hope you have a safe spot to hunker down in this storm and stay safe. It's going to be a tremendous storm. Unfortunately, probably one for the record books. We're going to look at all of the model data, everything from the GFS, which is coming further west, just like the Euro, and the hurricane models. Let's get into it. And here we are. Infrared satellite picture showing a very, very bleak situation here for Jamaica. You can see a big ball of convection blasting on the eastern side, northeastern side of the system, an intensifying system. The wind shear is slackening. And unfortunately, if we take a look at the three-dimensional cloud view, you can see the cloud tops are getting taller and taller, which means this thing is going to wrap up into like a tight donut shaped over the next 24 to 36 hours as this thing rapidly intensifies to a major hurricane. You can see the higher cloud tops already starting just on the southeast corner of Jamaica. And here we are. We're going to start off with the GFS. GFS is finally coming around to the Euro and all the other hurricane models and such. You know, this, for all intensive purposes, this is basically a hurricane at this point. And as you can see, the GFS continues to go just slightly east of guidance here. Here is the island of Jamaica. So as we get on into the 26th at 2 p.m., this thing's likely going to become a major hurricane very quickly here. You can see it down to, getting just to the southeast of Jamaica by this point, so 5 p.m. on the 26th, Sunday. It does start to wobble further west. Ultimately, you can see the GFS initially had problems with this big subtropical high, but you can see there's just a little bit of influence just to push it a little bit further to the west. We have the trough up here across the southeastern part of the United States. We're also going to continue to see a very heavy rain throughout Jamaica, Haiti and Dominican Republic, even back through Puerto Rico, St. Croix area, parts of the Western Virgin Islands as well. It's a very, very large circulation. Now you can see the plot here. It quickly becomes a Category 3 by about the time 8 a.m., right around the 26th. So this thing's going to go through rapid intensification, likely making landfall in Jamaica as a Category 4, potentially a Category 5, but it looks like a Category 4 at this point. We'll go over the intensity models. GFS just takes it just slightly east of guidance here on October 27th at 8 p.m. So we're getting into the Monday time frame for landfall. But for all intents and purposes, it seems like the hurricane winds will be well on shore long before that. Tremendous heavy rains as well. We're talking about 1 to 2 feet of rain. That translates to about 500 to as much as 900 millimeters of rainfall. This is tremendous rainfall. GFS is showing a landfall right around Kingston, Jamaica, which would be devastating. And then it wobbles it just slightly west of Kingston. Look how slow this thing is moving as it heads inland and then reemerges on the other side of Jamaica through 8 a.m. It will start to accelerate, thankfully, as we get the base of this trough up here. You can see this east coast low. So this trough digging in to the west, it taking it off towards parts of Cuba here, eastern tip of Cuba, these areas, and then towards the Turks and Caicos of the southeastern Bahamas. Now, look how close it does get to Haiti. You can see the peninsula out here, Port-au-Prince back here. You still will get some eastern feeder bands into this, so watch out. Tremendous torrential rain and some tropical storm, maybe low-end hurricane force winds you want to prepare for. Turks and Caicos, you should be preparing as well for a landfalling hurricane throughout the islands here. And then it starts to really accelerate throughout much of the Atlantic. We still watching the intertropical convergence zone behind it here. We have some tropical waves that will be approaching the Virgin Islands right around November 2nd here. So watch out for that. And another tropical wave crops up around Honduras, Nicaragua area as we head towards November 5th and 6th. So we might be looking at some more further development back to the west here. Stay tuned. If you're in Honduras, Belize, up to Cancun, we may see this try to develop as well, and more tropical waves around Trinidad, Tobago here. Let's take a look at the Euro. All right, so looking at the European model here, this is where things get tremendously awful. Just hot off the press, you can see this becoming rapidly into a major hurricane as we stretch through Sunday here, bombing down into the 960s pretty quickly. and just south of Jamaica, 961, 960 there. So you get the idea. There is some glimmers of hope that maybe some westerly wind shear on the west side of the system, once it approaches the Jamaican shoreline here on later Monday night and Tuesday, this could actually weaken a little bit and keep this from becoming a Category 5. That's our hope. But still, a Category 4 system is incredibly damaging and catastrophic. You can see it kind of stalls just before it starts to move to the northeast. We have that trough up here just east of Florida and the northern Bahamas. And there it is starting to make landfall Tuesday. So Tuesday midday, or about mid-morning to early afternoon, it looks like landfall point. It is basically over Jamaica. So the heavy rain threat continues. It's going to be replaced by catastrophic winds and surge during this time. And then it does start to accelerate. So once it makes landfall, thankfully it does not sit over the island. That is our potential saving grace here. However, impacts are still going to remain high. This does approach the southeastern Bahamas, the Turks, the Caicos, and the eastern tip of Cuba. You can see on the east side of it, too, these eastern feeder bands getting into the peninsula here. Port-au-Prince westward, in particular, landslide and tremendous flooding will be a thing. We'll go over those rainfall amounts. But, yeah, impacts are going to be over a large area. Don't just focus on the point of impact, the eye of it, so to speak. All our thoughts and prayers are going to be for Jamaica here, especially since you're going to take the exact impact with this landfalling major hurricane. So please, please heed the warnings, get to a safe spot if you can, and hopefully everyone stays safe. So here it is, wind field. I wanted to show this to you. This is actually in, I believe this is kilometers per hour. So this is what you're going to be measuring it here in Jamaica. Now look at right around, we get a timestamp here. This is Monday, right just afternoon. So here it is. It's pushing on shore. So well ahead of the system, the eye, we're going to be looking at winds increasing. If you look at the scale here, upwards of 130 kilometers per hour plus. And of course, unfortunately, our scale doesn't go beyond that, but you can see where the strongest winds are going to be. 152 kilometers per hour here, right around Kingston. So this is right around, if you get a time point here, this is 8 a.m. It's right around 8 a.m. on Tuesday morning. So that's going to be the height of the winds before pulling out towards Cuba. So you get the idea. The worst of it looks like it's going to head right through south central parts of Jamaica, eastern Jamaica, through Kingston in these areas, and then before heading off the coastline. If we take a look at the HWRF hurricane model, it's doing something pretty curious here. As we look at this bearing down on Jamaica, you can see the storm really intensifying. There it is. It's right around 954 millibars. This is on the 26th, 8 p.m. This is Sunday evening, basically. It's still heading a little bit further west of the Euro and the GFS. You see it brings it all the way over here like the Canadian model is, curiously. And then tracks it up along the western coastline of Jamaica. So we'll continue to watch it here. It's possible that this storm could still wobble a little bit further to the west, as you know, with those eye wall replacement cycles, and then pushing up through parts of the Turks, Caicos, southeastern Bahamas here. So watch out. Yeah, Cuba and the Bahamas, southeastern Bahamas will be in the path after this. You can see the extent of the eastern feeder bands getting into parts of western Haiti as well. So watch out. Flooding concerns, especially throughout the peninsula here and western parts of Haiti as these feeder bands spiral in. Now looking at the latest HMON hurricane model here, you can see this thing barreling right towards the coast, just a little bit west of the Euro here and the GFS. You can see this moving more in line with just west of Mandeville here, and then making landfall into southwestern parts of Jamaica here, right around just the eastern eye wall, right into central parts of Jamaica. So this would still be devastating, a little bit better for Kingston, but still you're on the eastern side. Still think this is going to come in closer, unfortunately, here to Kingston. So please stay tuned. This looks like a very damaging hurricane. And stretching further out here on the European model, you can see around it outside of Melissa, we're going to be looking at other impacts as well. You can see the conveyor belt of moisture even back through northern Honduras here, but all the way up through parts of Dominican Republic. On the east side of this system, we're going to be watching out southeastern Bahamas get hit. But look at this behind it. Right on the last frame here, you see the strong tropical wave. Also another one just south of Haiti here and Jamaica, unfortunately. That will be heading more towards Central America. And continuing to go further out in time here, you can ultimately see we're going to be looking at, unfortunately, next weekend, another surge of tropical moisture here across Jamaica and the Lesser Antilles. Two strong tropical wave action. So it seems like the tropics don't want to die out here. This is actually a coastal low up here, so we don't need to worry about anything tropical up here into the north central Gulf Coast. But you can see that's tapping into some of the tropical moisture across the northwestern part of the Caribbean here. And look at Central America. We just line up these tropical moisture and waves, northern Honduras in particular, and then we get some strong tropical waves moving through Trinidad, Tobago here, the Lesser Antilles. It seems like the Caribbean doesn't want to give up tropical season just yet through November 9th. Look at this strong tropical wave moving through Belize and up just southeast of Cancun, just west of the Cayman Islands. So thanks to Tropical Tidbits for our intensity model forecast. Now, the good news is some of these models have come down into a Category 3 range, but we're still having many models bring it up towards a high-end Category 4, which is likely to happen with better atmospheric conditions, low wind shear, lowering wind shear, and less dry air. So I don't see any reason why this can't become a Category 4 just before landfall in Jamaica, unfortunately. And sea surface temperature analysis, this is why I'm so concerned with this system. Look at the north central parts of the Caribbean, literally on fire, running about 3 to 4 degrees above average. Wanted to show you this graphic from the National Hurricane Center. Look at eastern Jamaica and the extreme southwestern portion of Haiti here. They're indicating that there could be isolated 30-inch plus rainfall amounts here. This is some tremendous rainfall. All right, so we're looking across the Western Caribbean here. This is the big story. Thankfully, initially, northern Honduras is only getting, close to 60, 80 millimeters of rainfall, with close to 100 as we stretch on into next weekend with another tropical wave. But look what starts to happen as we get on into our Melissa system here. It is looking now, since landfall is right in south central parts of Jamaica, the western Jamaica may eke out with less rainfall here, as usually does occur on the west side of landfalling systems. It's central and eastern Jamaica where you're going to see those 6, 7, 800 millimeter rainfall amounts here. So it depends on where this landfall point is, but eastern Jamaica is looking horrible for rainfall totals here. Cayman Islands upwards of 100 to 150. Look at southwestern Haiti here. You're eking out close to 800 millimeters, 600 to 700 millimeters on average. That's not good news for you. Landslide threat running high. Southern parts of Dominican Republic, right around 150, 200, 250 millimeters, close to 300 there. Turks, Caicos, southeastern Bahamas, some of you could see upwards of 200 to 300 millimeters as well. Now, this along the northern Honduras coast, that is going to fall. A lot of that's going to fall into that second weekend of November here. Look at this. Some areas approaching 500 millimeters. Belize right around 90 to 150. So watch out. All right. So the GFS comparing, very, very similar to the Euro. Now you can see eastern parts of Jamaica, western part of Haiti, especially the western part of the peninsula, and then eastern Cuba, the Bahamas. This is where the rainfall is going to be most intense. And then you see that first weekend in November, northern coastline of Honduras, close to 400 millimeters. But here it is, Jamaica, the western portions. Yeah, if this does make landfall in south central parts of Jamaica, all the heaviest rain would be on the eastern end, and some areas could approach 900 millimeters here. This is where you're going to get into those isolated areas, 30 plus inches, which is crazy. Look at that, 1,171 millimeters. Southwestern parts of Haiti, would not be surprised if these numbers run up closer to 5, 6, 7, 800 millimeters as well. Look at southwestern parts of Dominican Republic, you're close to 400 millimeters as well. As we look into the eastern Caribbean here, you can see the Lesser Antilles looks like a nice weekend for you, but then we get into some tropical wave action next weekend. Trinidad, Tobago, all the way up to St. Vincent, Barbados. And that really expands as we head towards November 8th and 9th. Some totals could be approaching 160 millimeters in some locations. Pretty dry up here through Puerto Rico, St. Croix. You will get some outer bands on the east side of Melissa, but it won't total to more than 1 to 2 inches. And then you get a dry spell moving through parts of the Virgin Islands, especially the eastern Virgin Islands. You could be getting upwards of 50 to 70 millimeters. And here we are looking at the Eastern Caribbean. You can see as we continue to go through time, ultimately, we're looking at, there it is, Puerto Rico, St. Croix, about 2 to 3 inches on average here. And then look at that. As we go through the first full week of November into the second week, Trinidad, Tobago, you're going to really run up some of these rainfall totals. Maybe about 150 to 175 millimeters up through St. Vincent, Barbados area, right around 60 to 100. Isolated areas up here as well, getting upwards of 150 millimeters. So looking at our dry air analysis here, thanks to Tropical Tidbits, you can see initially there was some dry air on the west side and some wind shear, which I'll show you the wind shear momentarily. But yeah, you can see ultimately this is landfall point over Jamaica. If you look at just west of the system, though, there is a lot of dry air over here. Most of it's on the east side, so that could actually preclude this, impede this from actually becoming a Category 5 storm. But still, a Category 4 storm is intense. We do start to get more dry air wrapping in on the west side, which would be some great news. It may help to keep this system's intensity in check, especially as we head through days 4, 5, and 6. And then you see it becoming more extratropical as it gets absorbed here into the westerlies. But unfortunately, a tropical wave replaces it for next weekend as we see another surge of tropical moisture. Unfortunately, that's not what Jamaica will be needing again by then. But thankfully, it doesn't look like this is going to develop into anything major. Now let's take a look at the wind shear. Right now, wind shear is continuing to decrease over this weekend over Melissa, and it will continue to remain extremely low. Look at that, right around 10 knots or less, and it even continues to slacken. Now, it looks like wind shear will start to intensify once the system makes landfall over Jamaica. Look at, you get some on the west side of the system, wind shear as high as, say, 35, 40 knots. That would be some great news, but it would have to get more over the center, which it does as it heads between Jamaica and Haiti here and Cuba and the Bahamas. So then this would be better news for the Bahamas because you start to see the wind shear really take effect on the west side of the system, 50 knots or higher. This would start to increase the transition to an extratropical system much, much quicker. But you see behind it, Jamaica almost has no wind shear behind this system, unfortunately. So any one of these tropical waves could try to develop potentially into something tropical as we head through the first and second week of November. And here we are looking at our future radar across the southeast. Yeah, we even have some lake effect up here, northeast Ohio through Buffalo, parts of the southern tier of New York, northern tier of Pennsylvania. That lake effect continuing. So scattered showers all the way through tonight. Look at the Gulf Coast region, though. This is where we're seeing some tremendous, we're going to see some severe weather throughout parts of Texas, Louisiana, and then that's going to stretch eastward as we head on into Sunday. You can see towards New Orleans, Mobile, Alabama here, towards the panhandle of Florida, still dealing with some scattered lake effect rain showers across parts of the Northeast. It is going to slowly tamper off as this coastal low winds eastward, southeastward out of the Gulf of Maine here. But look at this. Yeah, you can see some heavier rain really is trying to organize as this coastal low is going to try to get forming here. You notice the disparity, though. We have high pressure up here building into southeast Canada and the northeast, and the isobars are tightening here with our low pressure. That's going to get this pressure gradient going between the northeast and the southeast coast. And Joe Drehos across the Johnson City, New York area, you can see a beautiful rainbow to be had this past Friday, October 24th in the evening. Lake effect rain showers were prevalent across the Broome County area of the southern tier of upstate New York. And it's this time of year, and zooming in a little closer here, you can see it right over this roof behind these power lines and these trees here. Fall foliage is kind of strange right now. We got a lot of green, but we also got a lot of stuff off the trees. So there you have it. Look at that. Nice zoom in shot, giving a bigger zoomed out perspective here. You can see, look at that. Right. It goes up a little bit further as well. You can see it's kind of showery across the area. And there you have it in all its glory. You can see some sun shining on some of these trees behind it. But yeah, This is the time of year you can get some really nice rainbows with lake effect. You get the sun shining into those showers. Nice captures there. Joe Drayhouse from the Johnson City, New York area. As we look the rest of the weekend, that severe weather in Texas and Louisiana Saturday translates to a marginal risk here, southeastern Louisiana through the panhandle of Florida. And as we stretch through your Monday, it's just a generalized thunderstorm threat across the southeast here. Picking up where our future radar left off, as we stretch through the rest of the weekend into the new work week, look at this. So we got this coastal low trying to take effect off the Carolinas. It does try to bring some heavier rain here throughout the Outer Banks later Monday night into Tuesday morning. That will be a fading memory, though. Look how it pushes out over the open Atlantic pretty quickly here, missing most of the Northeast, maybe just clipping coastal areas with some showers. But it's quickly replaced October 30th by another area of low pressure trying to go coastal. And this one actually will pack a punch up through the mid-Atlantic right around the 30th, 8 p.m. here. Look at this, taking that classic comma shape. Hurricane thankfully pushing off to the northeast here. Bermuda still impacts along the East Coast with heavy wave and riptide action, coastal beach erosion and such. But this inland low, look at this. This pushing some heavier rain up through parts of New England, New York, Pennsylvania. We're really getting into that low pressure system moving up through parts of southeast Canada as well, which I'll cover in my Canadian weather outlook. But yeah, it's looking pretty stormy along the east here. And another area of low pressure digging in across Ohio. This may bring Ohio some really beneficial rain here. But really what you need is a tremendous soaking at this point. But another coastal low taking effect right around November 3rd. Look at this, going negatively tilted here across just southeast of Boston and Cape Cod here. Could be looking at stormier times ahead up through Nova Scotia, New Brunswick as well. So yeah, it's just one right after another. November 6th, look at this. This one does try to go coastal as well, but it's much more progressive, high pressure building it. And then another area of low pressure throughout the Great Lakes. This pushes through Ohio right around November 8th, New York, Pennsylvania, and New England right around the 9th. And picking up where our future radar left off here with the European model as we stretch through later Sunday into Monday. There's our southeast system. European really cranking a low pressure out here. It does move, a double barrel fashion here. So we get two areas instead of one like on the GFS. You can see the first area keeps a lot of the heaviest just offshore, mainly for Monday night and Tuesday, you can see. Then into Wednesday, it lingers here with the Euro a little bit further to the north because we actually have a secondary low hanging back across Kentucky and the Appalachians here. Then it just conglomerates it together. And look at this, parts of the West Virginia mountains here getting rain and snow mix. So that is kind of crazy. And a deformation zone setting back across Binghamton, parts of Scranton, Harrisburg area up to Albany, New York. Look at this. Some areas getting some rain and snow mix through parts of upstate New York as well. As we head on into Thursday and Friday, that's an intense area of low pressure. Helps to spin our hurricane offshore to the east, though. And then as we head towards right around Monday, November 3rd, look at this coastal low blasting inland across the Gulf Coast states, making a beeline up the East Coast again. This looks like kind of a thing to come here for this winter. A lot of nor'easters trying to spin up here. Look how much snow is showing up here in the eastern Great Lakes as we head towards Friday, November 7th. You can see the lake effect snow mixing in here, northeast Ohio, northwest Pennsylvania, western New York. And look at this. This is an Alberta clipper with snow breaking out for Saturday, November 8th across western New York, western Pennsylvania, upstate New York, and then blasting off the coast as a nor'easter. As we look at rainfall amounts here, you can see spreading across much of the southeast Gulf Coast areas. This is where we'll see 3 to as much as 6 inches of rain here with some of the severe weather along Louisiana area, southern parts of Mississippi here. So watch out. And stretching further in time on the European model, you can see making a beeline for the Outer Banks and then eventually up the East Coast as we head later on in the week, and another few coastal lows as we spread into the first and second week of November. Here's the Outer Banks, generally about 1, 2, maybe as much as 3 inches of rain. Gulf Coast areas more 3 to 5, locally higher to 6 inches. Parts of the Appalachians, though, look at that, 3, 4, maybe 5 inches in some of these areas, and then up in the Northeast, about 1 to as much as 3 inches of rain. And before we continue with more weather coverage, don't forget, if you made it this far in the video and you like it, please, everyone, smash that like button, everyone. It really does help, gets the weather content out. Also, question or comment down below. I'd love to read and respond to your questions or comments. And don't forget, subscribe, bell notification button, so you're alerted with all my future weather video updates. Let's continue with more weather coverage. As we look at our NAO index here, we're going from negative, very negative, all the way to neutral by the middle part of November. That would insinuate that we're going to see quieter conditions as we head mid to late November here. Looking at our MJO index here, we're starting off in the quiet zone right around phase 4, but watch out as we get towards phase 5, 6, maybe closer to 7 and 8 by middle to latter part of November. We could be looking at stormier conditions ensuing, which is kind of negating the NAO index. Upper air pattern for North America looks like this. So major ridge across eastern Canada here, trough out west, but look at here along the east coast and Gulf Coast states. That's where those storms are going to reside. They're going to kind of cut off here and become coastal lows as we stretch through Thursday into Friday next week here. You can see, look at this. This protects the east coast from any tropical systems, and then ridge tries to build in. If this was building in just maybe a week earlier, we might be in serious trouble with Melissa, but that's the good news. This trough, look at this one. This needs to be watched. This is right around the time the Euro is indicating snow in eastern North America here throughout eastern United States and Canada. So we'll need to watch out for that. And looking across the western Pacific here, yeah, it's we don't have too much to talk about. Japan's dealing with some rain over this weekend that will push out. South Korea and most of China look pretty dry. We will have an area of low pressure move across Vietnam, and that will reflect in rainfall totals. But yeah, all in all, you can see what's going to be happening. The intertropical convergence zone out here is looking very, very active, but nothing really developing until around October 31st here. You can see that we do get a typhoon trying to crank here. And could it affect the Philippines? Well, the modeling data is suggesting that. You can see right towards the northern Philippines, a major typhoon, it looks like, and that may be spinning up towards parts of China or Vietnam here. Taiwan's not completely out of the woods yet either, but you can see pretty quiet up through Seoul, South Korea, all the way to Tokyo, Japan. Here we go for the Western Pacific. You can see it's Vietnam that's going to be the big winner for rainfall amounts here. That is where those tropical waves are just going to target. Up here in Japan, it's basically at the beginning here of the weekend, and then not until about the first week of November, again, the 2nd and 3rd, we pile on some rainfall up here, upwards of about 150 to 200 millimeters. Down towards Taiwan, northern Taiwan, right around 400 millimeters, but look at Vietnam here. This is where you could get upwards of 500 to 700 millimeters of rainfall. And looking at our Canadian weather outlook here, as we continue through parts of the weekend into early next week. This low pressure winding up across Saskatchewan, Manitoba area. Also a Pacific system blasting into British Columbia here. Watch out. Just off Nova Scotia here, a major coastal low may clip parts of southeastern Nova Scotia and Newfoundland here. But this next one will definitely look at this inland low pressure system and then into the Gulf of Maine by November 1st. Pacific systems just keep that train of moisture. Also Manitoba through Saskatchewan here, Western Ontario. Watch out for this low pressure system, bringing some good precipitation. Nova Scotia, New Brunswick here, Prince Edward Island, Newfoundland, you're really wrapping up this storm. As one right after another, some beneficial rains do make it into southeastern Quebec here and New Brunswick as well, with another area of low pressure moving across Manitoba and Ontario here. So watch out. This upper level low just cuts off across Hudson Bay up here. But all in all, you can see plenty of precipitation chances across Canada here. Southern Ontario and Quebec, another chance November 8th into the 9th. All right, so looking at here, Canadian rainfall outlook, the west coast and the southeast part of Canada, eastern Canada, in particular, Quebec, about 40 to 60 millimeters, New Brunswick, Nova Scotia, Newfoundland here in the Canadian Maritimes, about 70 to as much as 120 millimeters. Look at the west coast, though, 200 to 300 millimeters, with central prairies are right around 20 to as much as 50 millimeters. Looking at your Sunday high temperatures here, this is what we're going to be looking at. 50s across the lakes and even 40s across northern New England here. 60s bubbling up here across the plains. Look at this Monday, though. You can see there's definitely a cold front in play. Look at that. Upper 50s down through Georgia, South Carolina, western North Carolina as well. That is getting crazy chilly for them for this time of year. Tuesday, look at this, holding on to 50s all the way down into parts of central Georgia here through the Carolinas as well, holding on to 60s along the coast. But look at plenty of 50s to be had here into Wednesday. Look at this. You can definitely see that fall has really taken over the eastern part of the U.S. here. As we stretch on into Thursday, October 30th, you can see 50s all the way down, almost as far south as the Gulf Coast here. But watch this, as we get into Friday, October 31st, you can see a little bit of a warming trend, 60s and even some 70s here along the Gulf Coast, 69 there in New Orleans. Look at these 50s, though, prevalent throughout the Midwest and the Northeast, Mid-Atlantic. Plenty of 50s to be had. Extended forecast for our hometown viewers, bring them to the Scranton's Upper Susquehanna River Valley, New York, and Pennsylvania. As we stretch through this next week, it is starting off nice and sunny. Temperatures will get cold start, 20s every night, those normally colder valleys, low 50s for highs, low to mid 50s. By later in the week, we're looking at a chance of showers Thursday and Friday, but those continued warmer temperatures will push towards the mid to high 50s. Plenty more weather to come. Here is a look at my affiliate. Check out these awesome, amazing maps. I am proud to announce that I am now an affiliate with Trilogy Maps. TrilogyMaps.com, bringing you the most digital, customizable maps found nowhere else on the internet. These maps are simply stunning. It's an advanced layering system that makes these maps great for making forecast maps with ease or any other maps that you would like to display important information on. The resolution on these maps is simply amazing. From the detail of everything here in the States, and you can also create stunning, digital, professional layered maps from also across the entire world. And don't forget, in checkout, the discount code option, use my code, MeteoMark, hit apply, and you will get 20% off your order. So if you want the most professional, customizable, and affordable weather maps found nowhere else on the internet, look no further than TrilogyMaps.com. Link in the description down below along with your discount code. As always, thank you for joining me for this edition of MeteoMark's Weather. Also, don't forget to join me on Facebook at MeteoMark, also Weather Northeastern, also Twitter at Weather Eastern. Don't forget it's MeteoMark.com, and don't forget, if you want to send me a coffee, there is a link, super thanks. You can smash that super thanks button or my PayPal link in the description down below. You can buy me a cup of coffee. Thanks everyone. Share that video, subscribe if you haven't, smash that like button.